Rogue Nicotine on Demand, delivered direct to your door. Available in all your favorite flavors and formats. Pouches, gum, wintergreen, peppermint, and more. From fishing to Sunday football to dinner at the in-laws, Rogue Nicotine is there for you when you need it. Visit RogueNicotine.com today and save 10% when you place your order for sugar-free, fast-acting Rogue Nicotine. Underage sales prohibited. This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. For more information, visit RogueNicotine.com.
New Year's resolutions come and go, so your business needs more than that. Get solutions with Comcast Business. With fast internet and advanced Wi-Fi, powerful cybersecurity solutions, 24/7 support, and more. You get everything you need to bounce forward. Call for restrictions and complete details.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 369. This morning, we were talking more about money laundering and the new regulations and laws that are being proposed by a bipartisan group of Congress members and senators. Well, tonight, we're going to expand on that conversation a little bit more and dig a bit deeper into money laundering and the art world. This morning when we were talking about this topic, I had said that it wasn't an area that I had really dug into too much, right? It was a new thread to pull on for me, considering where our investigation has been and where the investigation has come. So I've been more focused on the art world lately and digging a bit deeper. And I found a really good article that we're going to read tonight, and it goes into how money laundering works inside of the art world. And it gives a bit of context and adds a little bit more detail than I could have ever possibly given you from my limited amount of knowledge about the topic. So this goes right into our conversation in regards to the money laundering and the financial crimes and all of that stuff that we've really been digging into lately. And this will give us a bit more on how the art world, which Jeffrey Epstein loved to exploit, is used to launder money, hide money, and play games with taxes as well. So this article is from a website called artandobject.com. The headline, How Money Laundering Works in the Art World. Author, Charlie Pogakar. Works of art have long been identified and sometimes even romanticized as ideal ways for racketeers to launder money. There's a thread of logic here. The art world typically accommodates those that want to anonymously buy high-dollar paintings, and on top of that, the industry allows large cash deals. And anytime you have an industry that deals in large amounts of cash and big transactions that are done in cash, it's inevitable that you're going to find people laundering money and committing financial crimes. And again, I don't even blame half the people that are doing this sort of shit, considering the laws, right? I mean, people using loopholes, not actual straight up crimes, but the people that use the loopholes, it's pathetic. They're like 1 inch away from people actually committing crimes, but those loopholes are put there for them to exploit. None of it should be allowed, right? The loopholes or the outright thievery and money laundering, all of it needs to be squashed. And they're going to have to clean up industries such as the art industry and get a stranglehold on regulation here, because we're not talking about a couple of cents. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars in art and antiquities. For those looking to launder money, it's difficult to conjure up a more attractive set of circumstances than those. Yeah, it's a dream, right? This is like a mafia boss's dream to have this sort of vehicle to stash their money. Now, a mafia boss might not have that kind of ability because they're not welcomed in so-called polite society, maybe. But somebody like Jeffrey Epstein, hell yeah. Somebody like Leon Black, bring it on. That's how these people exist, right? They're so greedy that their billions and hundreds of millions, it's never good enough. They have to continue to steal. They have to continue to avoid paying taxes because F you, Bafangul, they're better than you are. You have to follow the rules, they don't. There also seems to be plenty of instances where art has played a role in the act of money laundering. Consider that when the Mexican government passed a law in the early 2010s to require more information about buyers and how much cash could be spent on a single piece of art, the market cratered as sales dipped 70% in less than a year. Many believe that was because Mexican cartel rings had previously been the biggest buyers in the market. It's for sure. They're not stupid. What, you think these criminal organizations are stupid? Especially down in Mexico. These cartel members and these guys that are running these cartels, they might as well be royalty, right? They have more sway and say than the public officials. They have more power than the military in most instances. And we see it on a daily basis in the streets of Mexico as the bodies get dropped and lined up by these cartels, and the military and the government are powerless to stop them. So does it shock anybody that these sort of, I'll straight up say it, geniuses when it comes to business? Because imagine if these people didn't focus on selling drugs and they put their minds to doing stuff that was like, conductive and it was productive. Boy, they'd be billionaires like Bill Gates, because the way they build these billion-dollar drug empires, that shit is not easy. And then to facilitate it and to run these drug empires, these dudes at the top are slick, crazy as hell, right? Nobody you want to hang out with, and certainly nobody to put on a pedestal. Scuzzbags, one and all, but very shrewd businessmen. So if you think they're leaving any market not exploited, you're wrong, especially a market like art where you can move and hide big amounts of money. So how does one launder money in the art world? The Globe and Mail reports that some of the cases are very straightforward. Let's suppose someone has $10 million on hand. They could buy a Picasso at an auction in, say, Geneva, and have the painting immediately moved to storage at a free port or a high-security storage space near the airport. And that's the kind of scheme that I was talking about in the show Billions that Bobby Axelrod was engaging in. And I have no doubt that Jeffrey Epstein had his fingers deep in shit like this. And all of his buddies. Again, look, Leon Black has a $1 billion art collection. What, they're all hanging on his walls? They were all bought and all the taxes were paid on them. No corners were cut, huh? See, the thing is, people like that never even get looked into. When those are the kind of people that should really be under the most scrutiny. With that sort of power and that sort of fortune, these people have proven themselves to be untrustworthy, so they have to be scrutinized. And if that means the art world needs to be more regulated and those transactions need to be more transparent, then so be it. Let's get a bill put on the books and into action. I don't see anyone on either side of the aisle who isn't in the pocket of these banksters and these scumbags who would object to more regulation and more transparency in a sector of the world like art, where the working class poor are the ones that get screwed in the end when the money laundering starts. The painting could be then anonymously sold without ever moving an inch, and the new buyer would have it retrieved from the free port. Suddenly, the original buyer turned seller has money from what is considered a legitimate business deal. The Economist estimated in 2013 that Geneva Freeport might hold $100 billion worth of U.S. art sitting tucked away in a space that also functions as a tax haven. Think about that for a minute. That obscene amount of money. $100 billion worth of art. $100 billion worth of art hiding over in a Freeport, just hidden away, no taxes on it, nobody knows about the sales, and these rich billionaires yuck it up all the way to the bank again, only to turn around and charge you 20% for your credit card. The local mafia don is only charging 2%. And these guys are charging 40%. And they're calling the organized crime folks the criminals. The real criminals are these people. This is the biggest organized crime outfit going. Other cases are more complicated. Take, for example, a story about Jean-Michel Bascot's Hannibal painting, estimated to be worth $8 million. The work was smuggled into the U.S. by convicted Brazilian money launderer and former banker Edmar Cid Ferreira. The painting had come to the U.S. from Brazil via the Netherlands with false shipping invoices stating that the contents of the shipment were worth $100. Presumably, Ferreira was on his way to the U.S. to sell the painting, an $8 million painting that's labeled as a $100 piece of art. That's one hell of an ROI, isn't it? That's a big time return on your investment. $100 for an $8 million piece of art. And what, you think that's the only time it happened? This just happened in a vacuum. This is the only guy involved in it, huh? There are so many people like this, middlemen, money launderers, people that direct other people's money into these offshore accounts and help them set up these shell companies. There are a ton of people like this dude right here. And when we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, you know that within his organization, there were other people who knew what was going on financially, without a doubt. And in my opinion, Indike most certainly has to be scrutinized when you're talking about the financial behavior of Jeffrey Epstein. Then there is the case of the international terrorists, where bands like ISIS have been noted for their laundering of cultural antiquities. And that was one of the most insane things that we saw during the whole entire situation in Syria, and even before that with the Taliban in Afghanistan, when they destroyed the Bimian statues and they were destroying the vibrant art of the region. It was just painful to watch. I have a real art love when it comes to history. And I just, it really made me sad to see all of that destruction of all of those old ancient cultures and the structures that they built. And then with ISIS in Iraq and Syria, well, you know about, Sumeria and all of the, ancient cultures in Iraq and all of those antiquities, and how many of them were stolen and flooded into the black market. ISIS then went on to use that money that they got from unscrupulous collectors to help fund their activities. So, again, all the money laundering and hiding the money in art and buying art on the black market, it all has repercussions, and it's not victimless. Whereas much of the area that ISIS controlled has been taken over by government-backed forces, it is reported that the group still controls millions of dollars and possibly hundreds of millions, thanks in large part to a robust antiquities trade. And this article was from May of 2020, so they're still talking, about the little pockets of ISIS and the money that they still control due to these antiquities. But there was a point, I remember, when it was at its height, and when Iraq just, exploded and ISIS came pouring in, where those antiquities were just flooding the black market. Like, every time you turned around and you would check out the news, they'd be talking about a new ancient Sumerian artifact or an artifact from Babylon, 5,000 years old or whatever may have you. And that these artifacts were found in some smuggler's bag, or there was a big bust, and it was just sad to watch, because really what you're doing is you're stealing the culture of these people. Like, it's not bad enough that we had to drop a bazillion pounds of bombs in Iraq, right? But then afterwards, we couldn't even secure their antiquities and the things that are important to them that make them a culture, and one of the oldest cultures at that. Pathetic, the whole entire situation. All of it was just such a pathetic scene, from America destabilizing Iraq all the way to the way ISIS was able to snatch those antiquities and then leverage the art market. In 2017, the Wall Street Journal published a long-form feature reporting how exactly ISIS turns these artifacts into revenue. The process begins with ISIS-affiliated jihadists overseeing local digging groups in Iraq and Syria. If and when an object of value is found, the digger sells it to ISIS officials at a discounted price. Oh yeah, that's like the old Roman rule, right? Rome would show up, and they'd have like a praetor show up with like his guards, and they'd show up in your village, and they'd be like, all right, well, we're here, and you're lucky now. You have the benefit of being friends with Rome. And the people are looking at each other, and then the praetor's like, and for this great joy, you have to give us such and such amount of dollars and people and money and friends and blah, all of that stuff as tribute. But you're friends with Rome now. And that's what it was with ISIS, right? They'd have these guys digging it up, and then they'd be standing over them with machine guns, telling them that, yeah, you're going to give us the homie hookup on this, right? We want that East Side Las Vegas price, homie. You're going to hook it up. And what are you going to do? Tell them no? So they shoot your head off? So, pretty good deal for ISIS, right? Shit deal for everybody else. The goods are sold to independent middlemen who smuggle them out of the country into border countries like Lebanon and Turkey. Eventually, the goods find their way to warehouses in Europe, where they await a Western buyer. This is essentially the process by which the president of Oklahoma City-based retail giant Hobby Lobby was buying Iraqi artifacts for the Museum of the Bible, and though it is impossible to say if the objects were of ISIS-related provenance, the lack of documentation and regulation in this uncertain world means anything is possible. Again, that makes it an ideal venue for money laundering. Well, got to do God's word, right? God demands that you steal other people's cultural artifacts to put in your museum, because that's the way of it. I'm sure that's exactly what God wanted you to do, Mr. Hobby Lobby guy. I swear to Christ, folks, the whole entire world is going insane. It's spinning at a rate that's so fast, all I want to do is stop and get off at this point. Holy cow, what is wrong with people? On what planet is it okay to buy antiquities of any kind without paperwork, without any sort of documentation, and then just go ahead and throw them in your museum, your God museum that you have somewhere? The audacity of it all is just mind-blowing. But when you're a billionaire like these people are, and you have been operating with no rules, no laws, no anything for so long, what does it matter if you steal a 7,000-year-old tabernacle, or if you have a clay jar that was made 5,000 years ago that you got from some shady-ass antiquities dealer who got it from the black market? What do you care? Oh, you have a new centerpiece to impress your friends with after they come home from the golf club. You bunch of jerk-offs. And yet, not everyone agrees money laundering in the art world is as prevalent as it's purported to be. That discussion has picked up in the U.S. in recent years, triggered by U.S. Representative Luke Messer, Republican of Indiana, proposing adding pieces of art as an extension to the Bank Secrecy Act, a 1970 law in place to make it more difficult for mobsters and terrorists to launder money. Yeah, now you're starting to tiptoe on the lines of RICO, right? So I'm totally fine with that. As you all know, I am a big fan of these scumbags getting smashed with RICO. If it's good enough for the local bookmaker, it's good enough for the local bankster. So adding it to the Bank Secrecies Act is totally a good idea in my opinion, because look, you and I aren't involved in this sort of nonsense, believe you me. These are laws for people who obviously need the oversight. They've been conducting themselves the way they've been conducting themselves for so long without any sort of slapback that it's beyond time for them to understand that they do not operate on a different level than us. There's no aristocracy in the United States of America, and their bullshit is not going unnoticed anymore. At the time Messer proposed the addendum to the BSA, many argued that regulations already existed that made it difficult for fraudulent activity to take place. They further argued that art collections and museums having to fill out extra paperwork to track each sale and purchase would be financially crippling, much in the way that the regulations in Mexico damaged the art trade in that country. Now, well, again, they don't mention that it's the cartels that really damaged the art trade in that country, not the regulations. If these people were so interested in art, they'd play by the rules, whatever the regulations are. Just like if you have a state that has legal marijuana, what, you think people want to pay $8, $9 tax on an eighth? No, but that's the way of it, right? You got to pay the tax. No different here with these knucklehead-ass art morons. It'll be financially crippling. If we got to pay the taxes, so do you. And that's the cost of doing business. If you can't afford it, maybe you should find a different business. At a Fashion Institute of Technology symposium in 2018, former Department of Homeland Security Special Agent James McAndrew argued, there has not been an art dealer or collector convicted for money laundering through art. Yeah, well, is that something to laud and hold up on your shoulders and cheer about? Or is that just another finger pointed at the system, damning to the system, by the way, that, look, nobody gets in trouble for this shit. You can launder as much money as you want in the art world, and nobody's going to pay attention. Nobody cares. But guess what? I think that the worm is turning, and not only in the United States. You look over in the EU and Europe and Australia, and there's an awakening of people, and it has nothing to do with one side or the other of the aisle. It's the working class poor, all of us, who are waking up and saying, we're getting the raw end of the stick here. We're the ones making this country run. And yet these assholes are so scummy, so disgusting, that they would engage in the largest transfer of wealth up in the history of the world at this point. When is enough for these scumbags? But McAndrew's quote does not prove that the practice isn't happening so much as they aren't being arrested, charged, and convicted of money laundering crimes in the art world. 100%. That's exactly what it's indicative of. It's not that there's no crimes occurring. We know that they are. Again, what do you think? Jeffrey Epstein is buying up is using up 1/6 of his net worth on paintings, on 3 paintings that he's going to hang on his wall? Yeah, right. He'd rather have the pictures of the young girls that were taken on his wall, or Bill Clinton in that cool dress on his wall. He doesn't need the Picassos. Those Picassos were going to be used as a vehicle to move money around or whatever the hell other scummy plot this guy had in mind. Many others disagree with McAndrews' assertion, and there seems to be plenty of evidence contrary to his claim. The art market is an ideal playing ground for money laundering. Thomas Christ, a board member of the Basel Institute of Governance, a Swiss nonprofit that has studied the issue, said to the New York Times in 2017, "We have to ask for clear transparency, where you got the money from and where it is going." Yeah, like the rest of us in our everyday life. If you or I are making all kinds of financial transactions, big money transactions, the bank and the government sure are going to want to know why. But yet, these guys have $8 million Picassos, and they're marking them for $100 and moving them through customs. And there's no repercussions. Nobody goes to jail. There's no convictions. There's no indictments. There's nothing. That's how people like Jeffrey Epstein are able to operate. That's how these people are able to move around all of this dark money, only claim a little bit of it, but at the same time live these incredibly insane lives of luxury. All the while thumbing their nose at the rest of us, as if they have any sort of moral ground to thumb their nose at the rest of us, these scuzzbags in so-called polite society. But yet here they are on a regular basis, doing just that. Hiding their money in high-rise buildings. Oh yeah, I have all these billions of dollars to launder. What should I do? Oh, I have an idea. Let's build a 400-story building. That's a great way to hide our money. And it just goes on and on and on and on. Administration after administration, Congress after Congress, Senate after Senate. Nobody ever does anything about it. And you wonder why these people continue to increase their wealth while the rest of us are lucky to just get by, scrape by, especially these days. But it's all very clear, folks, that these people that are engaging in this kind of behavior, they think that the rules aren't there for them. But I have a feeling that they're in for a rude awakening in the next few years. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBY_CAPUCCI at protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. As for tomorrow's schedule, the morning update, there will be a flashback episode in its place. And if something occurs while I'm climbing, then when I get home, I'll record an episode and we'll catch up. If not, we'll just catch up with the daily drop. So that's where we're at for tomorrow's schedule. Just want to make sure everybody is caught up and ready to go. All right, folks, I will be back tomorrow, and we will see what's going on in the world of Jeffrey Epstein, and we will pick this conversation up where we left off.
Rogue Nicotine on Demand. Delivered direct to your door. Available in all your favorite flavors and formats. Pouches, gum, wintergreen, peppermint, and more. From fishing to Sunday football to dinner at the in-laws, Rogue Nicotine is there for you when you need it. Visit RogueNicotine.com today and save 10% when you place your order for sugar-free, fast-acting Rogue Nicotine. Underage sales prohibited. This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. For more information, visit RogueNicotine.com.
New year, new you. Enroll in Stanbridge University's LVN, RN, VetTech, OTA, or PTA programs. Campuses located in Orange County, Los Angeles, and Riverside. Ranked a top 10 California Best Small College in 2020. Financial aid available for those who qualify. This new year, take the next step toward a rewarding career. Apply today for the winter 2021 classes and jumpstart your new year. Learn more at stanbridge.edu.